John Hancock was born in 1737. He grew up a wealthy philanthropist and became a businessman. He also became a politician and a smuggler. He was brilliant, he was charming, and he had a gift for public relations. John Hancock was known for being politically courageous, and he would stand up to any British subject, whether it was a loyalist, whether it was a redcoat, an informant, or King George himself. John Hancock once had his home raided by British troops in an event known as the Hancock Affair. This event made him even more beloved to patriots and the patriot cause. Does he remind you of anybody? I'm gonna keep going. John Hancock was heavily disfavored by the crown for his roles in the Committee of Commerce, as well as the Boston Tea Party, and not to mention being an entrepreneurial smuggler that worked directly against the interests of the crown and the legislature in their collusion with the East India Company. And prior to all of this, he had become Speaker of the House of Representatives from Massachusetts, and he was staunchly and vocally opposed to the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts. John Hancock's wealth and his visibility, as well as his outspoken opposition to British rule, put a huge target on his back. Does he remind you of anybody? And he became a high-profile target of British authorities who sought to quell this growing rebellion within the colonies. John Hancock was the figurative head of the snake for the patriot cause. So what did King George do? Well, he bountied John Hancock and also Sam Adams, who was another leader of the cause. Both men would carry on, only briefly going into hiding during the initial battles of the Revolutionary War. But they remained heavily involved and devoted to the cause. John Hancock even led a militia during the siege of Boston, and he did that from the shot heard around the world to Evacuation Day, which was St. Patrick's Day in 1776. Few people know this, but Paul Revere, when he rode out to tell everybody that the British were coming, he actually made it to Lexington 30 minutes before the other riders. And he did that so he could warn John Hancock and Samuel Adams and get them out of there. You see, Paul Revere succeeded at this, but then he was captured and later released. He actually never made it to Concord to warn anybody that the British were coming. And he sort of didn't warn anybody at Lexington either, just his homies. It was Samuel Prescott who was the one who really should be getting the credit, but I digress. Now, within weeks of eluding the British in Lexington, John Hancock was elected to president of the Second Continental Congress, where one of his earliest acts was to commission General Washington to lead the Continental Army. John Hancock would also sign the Declaration of Independence the following year. As you may recall, John Hancock signed a very large and flamboyant signature on the Declaration of Independence. After signing, he said, and I quote, "There. I guess King George will be able to read that without his spectacles." This was an act of both defiance and vanity. It was to taunt the king. You see, John Hancock, who was a very wealthy man and very involved, was also very offended about the very low bounty that King George had placed on him. He felt personally that he was worth much, much more. And he needed King George to know that. Following the war, John Hancock was elected as a delegate for the First Constitutional Convention in 1787. He supported the new Constitution with the promise of a Bill of Rights like a good anti-federalist, but he couldn't attend for health reasons. He suffered health reasons his whole life, primarily gout. John Hancock served as governor of Massachusetts from 1780 to 1793 when he died, for all but 1 year, 1787. John Hancock is one of my favorite founding fathers, and there are parts of his life that remind me of a couple of my favorite billionaires who have been making it a habit to stick it to the state. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and stay free.